Okay. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Who have we got missing?
I don't have any apologies for absence currently.
Joy Dennis isn't here. Okay. Probably wandering around the building lost at the moment. Right, next item is the minutes. Do we all agree with the minutes? Anyone any amendments? Agreed? Okay, so we can pass those through as agreed. Declarations of members' interests. Have we got any declarations that want to come forward? No? Okay, so we can move on there. Announcements. I've got a number of announcements. First of all, as you're aware, there's going to be some changes to my point of view. Our terms of reference are basically the same. There's two minor items where we're already doing basically consider the robustness of the council's capital strategy, investment strategy, and treasury management strategy has been added, and plus we report to the full council annually on the work undertaken during the year, identifying any issues, concerns, and/or areas for improvement. So we give a report to the council, and this came out from the course I attended with the LGA, and it was the sort of recommendations to make sure that we're aligned with everybody else. The other item, well, two more items. The next item is the Regional Audit Committee. I attended a meeting via Zoom and received an interesting presentation about Audit Committee's roles during the period of local government reorganisation. Now, once I've got the slide deck, I'll forward it to all members and anybody else who would like a copy. The next announcement is that you'll note that item 10 on the agenda contains an exempt item, which is Appendix B on page 117 of the private agenda pack. The Director of Resources will present his report in Appendix A, which can be discussed. I'll then propose we go into an exempt session. Any members of the public be asked to leave, and the recording will be paused at that time. At the end of the discussion, in relation to Appendix B, we will go back into the public session, restart the recording, and finalise the noting of that agenda item. Okay, I think that's my announcements done. We'll now go on to agenda item number 5, the annual audit report, and to receive the report of the external auditor.
Thanks, Chair. This is our auditor's annual report for the council for the 23-24 audit, which we issue this report to meet the requirements of the NAO's Code of Practice. This report summarises the key findings and conclusions from our audit results report, which we presented at the last audit committee. Since that last audit committee, we have completed our work. We've issued our opinion on the financial statements, and we have no concerns to raise regarding the council's value for money arrangements. The report also contains value for money commentary, and I think that's about it. It just is a key report that summarises everything from our last report. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions, members? I've got one. Now, I recall there was an issue regarding valuation of car parks in the last report. Has this progressed? Has there been any agreement between officers of the council and the external auditors as yet?
As the auditors, we are looking at it at this point in time and discussing it with the council officers.
It's part of 24-25.
Apologies. For 24-25.
You want to try again?
Yeah, sorry. We're discussing we're picking this up at the moment, and we're discussing with the officers for 24-25 as we speak.
Okay. The next question I've got is regarding the external auditor's fees. And I noticed that the PSAA will determine the final fee as reported in the last meeting. I'm just wondering if we can, as a council, as members, could see your submission before the PSAA sees it. It might avoid any conflicts going forward.
Put yourself on you. Chair, can you hear me? Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear you okay.
Okay, apologies. Sonny and I are sitting in the same room, so we're getting a bit of feedback from each other. For the 4-hour 23-24 audit, we outlined within the audit. Did we? Well, I think we should have outlined within the. Let me check whether we outlined within the audit results report at the last committee the fee ranges which we were proposing. The PSA did have a timetable where they wanted us to feed back on the fees which we're putting to them. As you know, the PSA responsible for determining the fees, and as part of that process, they will. I assume that they will be contacting yourselves in terms of the scale, the fees that will be determined. But I'll go back after this meeting, check in terms of what we had within the previous audit results report, and confirm to officers the submissions which were made.
Okay, thank you. Has any other members got a question? No? Okay, I think that's your session done. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Apologies for the feedback there, and we'll Sonny and I'll both take our leave from the meeting if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you then. Goodbye.
Yes, bye. Now we move on to item 6 on the agenda. I seem to have mislaid.
Page 33.
Right, this is the internal audit progress report, Q3. Thank you.
So yes, this is as usual. It's a summary of the work that we completed this time in the third quarter of the year, so anything up to the 31st of December. Pleased to say that everything that we issued as the final report during the period was a positive opinion. So we had 1 substantial assurance and 3 reasonable assurance opinions. So generally very good there. Happy to take individual questions about those audits. I wasn't going to go through them in any detail, but you've got the summaries there in front of you. What's my bad? Sorry, so I've made a mistake doing this on one screen. So just coming down to the counter fraud and investigation activities, the National Fraud Initiative exercise, we successfully submitted all of the data required from Horsham to central government. At the time I wrote this report, we hadn't had all results in yet. We haven't had all of the results. So we had just over 1,000 matches. That's about what you'd expect for a council of this size. I would like to highlight that is a match of almost anything. And so the biggest match that tends to come up is creditor invoices. It's a creditor reference. So that can be anything from, if we have monthly invoices from people and they call it P1 2024-25, it's a very common reference, and so you'll get those sorts of repeats. it even looks will match the amounts, and it's been a lot of false positives that I know. So they're what are called low priority. There are some high priority matches within there, so there'll be things like council tax benefits that we need to look into. We will support services to make sure that all of the high priority matches are dealt with. We've already dealt with some of them relating to payroll and taxi licensing. So we'll make sure that all of those are cleared in a timely manner and work with whoever we need to work with to ensure that there wasn't actually any fraud. I will point out for the NFI exercise, the bulk of it is an error rather than fraud. But I will report back to this committee if there's anything we need to be concerned about. Action tracking. I'm pleased to say 100% of all the high priority actions have been implemented. Now we do a complete tracking exercise for Horsham, so I can also confirm that all medium and low priority actions have also been implemented or progress made, as we would expect by the date of this report. A couple of amendments to the plan. So it's a positive story, really, that domestic food waste is a major project that has the potential to cost a lot of money and reputationally not do us favours, but management were keen to get that independent view from us. So we've added that into the plan. We actually have completed that audit now. And that's a really good sign that management want us to engage. They appreciate what we can do for them. So we added that one into the plan. Using contingency time, we always build in some contingency time, which I'll come on to when I talk about next year's plan. And we removed the air quality grant, which was outside of our control. That was DEFRA decided to withdraw all of that funding and cancel the scheme. We had plans to audit that because it was necessary, but that's now been removed. At the time, so there's always a timing issue with these reports. Obviously, there's a deadline that we need to write them. There's a deadline for Q3 each quarter. So this is why I'm giving you sort of live updates almost of what has happened. And since then, we've actually issued another 3 draft reports. There are another 2 draft reports coming out. So there's only a couple of audits that haven't reached draft report stage, but we will make sure to do everything we can to get those done by the end of the financial year. Bringing all that to Q1, 25-26. Performance for audit is broadly on track. So I appreciate the completion of the plan and days delivered is slightly on track by a few percent, so it's not huge. We actually have caught up with that now. Again, this is a timing issue. This is about, like I say, more reports were issued just after the cut-off deadline. So I'm not concerned, and I will be reporting to you, fingers crossed, all green figures on the next quarter. If not, we will ensure that Horsham receives all of the days it has paid for. So I will make sure that everything is delivered as expected. So that's everything from a quarterly update point of view. Happy to take any questions.
Len, Ems Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of questions on the IT backup and recovery. What about loss of building?
Sorry, loss of.
If you lost the use of the building, how are we based on IT backup then?
I don't think that's something we've looked at. I'll make a note that we have got building security there, but I don't think that would tie in.
Say there was a fire in the building, the officers on that following morning couldn't get into the building. Would some officers be able to still work?
Okay. We actually, just realised we have audited business continuity planning, which is what would cover. Came up with reasonable assurance. It was probably 2 years ago now. I'd have to go back and check. So we have audited that. It's one that tends to come around probably every 3 to 4 years. We'll look at business continuity planning. And obviously, having moved here, next year's plan does include the most important part first is building security. Immediately, and then it might be in the next year's plan, we then look at business continuity again once everything's settled into the new facilities here.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody more questions, members? Paul? Okay.
Yeah, on the accessibility report, I just wondered, generally, does the council actually receive any feedback from members of the public or the users on the council website about its accessibility, whether it's easy to access or not? I'm just curious to know what the user experience is. I only tend to use the website to download papers and pay my council tax, which, you know, fairly defined things and quite straightforward. But I'm just wondering if there's any other feedback or mechanism for collecting feedback from their experience of the website is and how accessible it is or not.
So as part of the audit, we did look into any complaints and compliments. We say compliments. It's, I understand, not very cynical. Councils where only get compliments, but we do tend to get the complaints quite quickly. So we did focus on that side. Again, it's quite pleasing to note, and that was across IT, comms, customer services. There hadn't been any complaints about accessibility. So we'll take that as positive. And that's all we can really do. But the service would obviously be best placed to update it about accessibility.
Then again,
Museum and Art Gallery. One major collection rationalisation by 2020. Review and address the storage. When we look at storage, do we consider the preservation of those items in relation to where they're stored in terms of water ingress, fire protection and protection?
I mean, there's only one main storage site, and they have considered security and the things that would come under the insurance category. It's not something we specifically considered as part of our audit. That's very much on the how are they managing the disposals project, essentially. But we could see evidence of something we would raise if we'd noticed anything not being considered as part of that. And I think part of the rationalisation project is to actually reduce the need for that sort of secure, dry storage. It costs the council money, essentially. So it would make sense to reduce the amount of items being stored.
Okay, thank you.
any further members?
Or just one point clarification. Yeah. So, paragraph 4.4, it says that fine reports have been issued for the first three in that list. I'm presuming is the reason they're not included in the summary because you haven't had the response from management yet, or?
No, we've had the response from management. They have gone out. It's literally they were issued after the beginning of January when our Q3 deadline was. So yeah, this is about rewriting the report after the event. You'll get full updates on this. Give you the spoiler alert. All three were reasonable assurance, and I'll give you the full summaries in the next quarter's progress report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions as well. Now, will you be following up the actions you recommend in the, to make sure that the council management are actually putting into place the improvements you recommended?
Yes, and we follow up all level actions at Horsham, even the mediums and lows, just to check that good practice is happening.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I can vouch for that.
That's great. Good news. One of the biggest changes coming up in local government is the local government reorganisation. Will you be addressing and adding this into your reviews later on?
We will. At the moment, we weren't able to say specifically what we might be doing, but there is an assumption, and it will be covered in the next item, that we will have to flex the plan. I don't know if guidance or instruction will come from central government, but we will respond accordingly. And we are prepared to drop certain audits if we have to, pick up whatever we need to. But yes, of course, we'll be heavily involved in whatever we need to. It's a very unknown area at the moment, isn't it? So we're sort of all waiting the next instruction, I think. So
yeah, indeed. Okay. Now, any further questions, members? No. Okay. So we're asked to note the report and consider if any further actions required in response to issues raised, and to identify potential items for inclusion in the internal audit plan. I think we've done that. Agree? Yeah. Okay. So we'll move on to item 7. That's what this time. Oh no. Now this is the internal audit strategy and annual plan. Right, Maureen, again?
Thank you. So yes, in line with good practice, we carry out an annual refresh of the internal audit strategy and the charter. The biggest thing to note, well, two big things. One is we can't ignore LGR. There are comments in here that we will flex the plan as required, and that goes for every council, I think, and that's just the way we have to accept it for now. I will bring any updates to this committee, though, if we have to change anything. The other big update from internal audit to note is that the public sector internal audit standards, which defines a lot of our strategy charter, the way we operate, on the 1st of April, these will be replaced by the global internal audit standards. So still with the Institute's internal auditors, SIPFA, etc., they will all be, they're all coordinated on this. They are not hugely different. They introduce a few more areas of expertise, sort of reflecting the time. So cyber plays a slightly bigger part in what we're expected to have knowledge of. We are already carrying out a self-assessment of how we perform against the new standards. So far, it looks good because it's not massively different and we are a mature service. I will, though, have to bring the internal audit charter back to this committee at some point in the year so that it's fully updated for the global internal audit standards. And that's good practice, and we'll make sure that we're in line with that. So otherwise, the strategy and the charter, they set out the priorities, they set out council's priorities as well, and how we're going to respond to emerging risks, including LGR. The main document that I want to draw your attention to is actually Appendix A, which is the internal audit plan for 2025-26. Now, this sets out all the work that we plan to do. I keep using the word flexible, but it really is flexible because we wouldn't be a good service if we didn't respond to any emerging risks. However, this plan, as it is based on a number of factors, including a general risk assessment, feedback from managers, and horizon scanning across local government. We are continuing to adopt a risk-based approach. So there is a mix in there. There are what we call the key financial audits, so the core systems of the council, things like accounts payable, accounts receivable, capital programme, general ledger, etc. So that's just, we'll always keep those on a rotation, and that's 6 out of the 10 that we could do. And that's because we've done the other 4 this year with positive opinions, so we don't need to do them again, and we'll just keep on cycling through those until we're told to stop. The remainder are all risk-based. Now, again, really, really pleasing to see how senior management have engaged with us. We had a lot of requests for specific audits, which is a sign that management take control and risk very seriously here. So I'm really pleased to have that relationship with the leadership team here. So a lot of risk-based. You'll see the big projects in there, the Capital Theatre refurbishment. I know we did an audit of that a few months ago. It has changed, so I think it's worth doing another audit of it just to see in this new format how that project's working. Domestic food waste, it's on there again. We've just done an audit with a positive opinion, but the service are really keen that before go live, we have a final look just to make sure the council's set up for success. And property decarbonisation is another one that we have looked at previously, but it was very, very much in its infancy. So we're coming back in a year and a half later to see how it's progressing, because it's a huge project and it's a really important project in terms of the priorities of the council. So I won't go through all of them, but I'm happy to take any questions about the plan. If anyone has any.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm looking down the list of other focus areas, and I see that tree management is in there. And I mean, it may be my ignorance of the importance of tree management, but compared to some of the other audits in that list, which seemed big, meaty, strategic issues, tree management didn't feel like a big issue. Now, I could be completely wrong here. If we have a park range, they'd probably tell me, you're talking nonsense because it's a really big issue. But it didn't feel like a big issue to me. I'm going to say I'm willing to be disabused of my ignorance here. But.
It's not a big issue until it is. Partly, so Horsham have just started a new contract for tree management. It's a significant spend, so that's good practice. Would say we'll have a look at how that contract's performing. The other thing to note is the neighbouring council has unfortunately had two deaths from failure, essentially, to manage their trees. One of which was on the countryside estate, one was on a highways estate, so that would be West Sussex responsibility, but one was on the countryside estate, which is Horsham Council's responsibility. It wasn't Horsham, by the way, this was a Surrey council, but this happened, it was a child. So it's been in the news since November. So it's quite, we felt it was probably important just to get some assurance that the council is doing what it should.
So it's, in a sense, there's an element of, there is a risk to the council should something happen and it be, subsequently determined that the absence or poor tree management was either indirectly or directly,
Yes.
responsible for, injury or indeed death. So it's a public safety
Yes.
kind of issue as well as a risk to the council.
Mm. Probably less of a financial issue, but a significant reputational risk.
Thank you.
Len and Springs?
Wasn't there I seem to remember there was a problem with delivery with the previous contract. That's what we had to renew contract. So it was very necessary to do the audit. Put it.
Nigel Emery?
I'm surprised that there is nothing in relation to planning in the list of audit activities, given the both financial significance of it and also the risks associated, and particularly in the light of the inspector's position.
Yeah.
Would you like to outline why it's not contained?
It's numerous issues, numerous reasons. The biggest one is having the inspection, sort of, they're the experts. Well, what we do, we go in as laymen, we're never the experts in whatever area we look at. So actually, the inspectors are the ones who can do that job properly. So we will support. So in addition to the audits in here, we have quite a large chunk of time that we call client support and advice. And that's where we don't necessarily do an audit, but we will work with the service. So for that area, for that directorate, we will, if they write a new policy, they need to come to us just for sort of fresh set of eyes, and we'll give it that. But it doesn't require that full audit. It's just us helping them along as they go along their improvement plan. So that is the plan for planning. It's actually on the longer term, sort of 2 to 3 years down the line, to see how they're doing. Let them run whatever improvements they want to. Because at the moment, if we go in, I think they know what their weaknesses are. We would simply repeat that, and that won't actually provide any value to them. They're sort of barenessing wounded, which isn't good for anyone. But we are in close liaison with the service, and we will support them throughout the year, whatever way they need. And that we will include updates, any support and advice that's significant. We always include an update in our quarterly progress reports.
Thanks very much.
Right. Thank you very much. Is any further questions from members? Oh, Paul.
On the number of days, para 5.2, it's down to 400. Is that the same as previous years?
It is. It's constant. But for Horsham, we stick with 400 days, which is it's sort of on a par. It's actually very slightly above the average for boroughs and districts. But I think we agree that the level of assurance is necessary. It's not very far above, incidentally. They range between 350 to about 500. There are some who have more, but I'd argue that's almost overkill. You'd have to have a lot of audits running at any one time. So I don't think officers will be able to keep doing their jobs with auditors sitting next to them every day.
And presumably the 400 is kind of a contractual obligation. That's the amount specified in the contract. So.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Reem. So we're asked to note the review and
to approve the
asked to approve. Sorry, yeah, I'm getting to the right one now. Yeah. We're asked to approve the internal audit strategy, internal audit and corporate floor plan, and internal audit charter. Can I have a show of hands for an agreement? Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to item 8, which is the internal audit review of revenues and benefits. And I'll hand over this one to the Director of Resources.
Yes, and you might be wondering why it's me presenting this and not Reem. That's because this internal audit was done by the internal auditors of Milton Keynes for the systems that they use in Milton Keynes, so the housing benefit system, the business rate system, and the council tax system. But it's a similar reporting sort of format. They call it good assurance and satisfactory assurance rather than reasonable and substantial, but it broadly means the same sort of thing. And for the three systems there, they have achieved a good assurance and a satisfactory assurance with various recommendations to implement, to improve some of these things, as you'd find in many audits. And I've already been through with the Milton Keynes team their sort of method of what they are going to do and when and how, but they are generally considered to be sort of the lower medium risks that we would get in any system. Take any questions?
Members, any questions? Yeah.
I wasn't actually going to raise a question, but it just occurred to me how the good assurance for housing benefits, how that fits with, obviously we've got another report about the level of housing benefit subsidy and the amounts of clawback and so on. So I'm just thinking, is there what's the read across from having good assurance about controls, environment and compliance, and the level of error that we obviously then have reported in a subsequent item on the agenda? And are the two, can you say, well, actually, given the level of error, can you say that there's good control? I'm just trying to get it clear in my mind. Is there a direct correlation between from one to the other, or are they effectively separate? Because you're talking about historical errors in some of the housing benefit audits we have.
Yes, there is an element of that. There's also an element of the system which they've audited, and the system being correctly processed. If you put the right input in, it processes it correctly and it comes out at the end as it should do. If you put the wrong input in by a human typing something and it's wrong, it goes through the system. It's still correct, but it's the wrong output because you put the wrong input in.
Almost like garbage in, garbage out. It's not too strong a way of putting it, but yes. So if the wrong information is input, it's still processed, as it should be. But obviously, you get a result which is, reflects the error on the input side. So it's the processing that's good, and the controls are the processing. But if the base information for some reason is wrong or in error or isn't updated when it should be, then there will be an error in the actual amount of benefit that's then calculated. Yes, thank you.
But you've got quite a high degree of confidence in their auditing process at Milton Keynes, I would hope.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I remember discussing with you recently about historical issues with previous shared service, which went a little bit haywire. Now we are hopefully tighter in control and understanding that this shared service basically. Okay.
Yes, I mean, we might want to cover that when we talk about agenda item 11 on the housing benefit audit that was done externally on the sort of the LA error element on the claim form.
Okay. So, any further questions, members? Now we're asked to note the internal audit reviews and revenues and benefits. So I think we've done that. Thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item number 9, which is the draft annual governance statements. And I would ask the head of finance to present this one, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the draft annual governance statement for 2024-25. It's pulled together through the annual review of the Council's governance, risk management and internal control arrangements. And hopefully you've all had a chance to read the document. So the outcome of the reviews that take place is generally good, but there are a few minor issues that have been identified, and I'm not trying to weigh out whether it's a good thing, one thing or a bad thing. But they are minor, and they're detailed on page 84 and 85 of the agenda pack. I'll just run over them in summary. So there was a data breach where a system automated letter contained additional information. This was reported to the Information Commissioner's Office and no further action was required. We had 2 issues of staff declarations. So one whereby an officer didn't declare a second job. And then another officer did not declare a company that they set up with an individual, and the relationship with the company there could have been perceived as a conflict of interest. And then 2 more, there were a number of rolling contracts in procurement that we need to review internally, and then internal audit identified a number of issues with alcohol licensing, but these have now been rectified. There are no significant governance issues to report to you. And then on page 91 and 92 of the agenda pack, this shows the action plan for 2024-25. So as you would expect, most of these actions have been completed, except the review of the Constitution, which has obviously been reviewed. It just goes to full council next week for approval. So that's the deadline on that is a bit later. And then on page 93, you've got the action plan for the forthcoming year.
Okay.
Any questions?
I've just got to ask the thing about the staff. Is this a question of somebody actually working from home, working for 2 councils, or were they working for a private company?
I believe they had set up their own second self-employed company, and they hadn't declared it.
I've seen or heard of people working from home, working for a couple of different councils for the same job.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a risk.
The National Fraud Initiative exercise highlights all of those, and we don't have any this time.
We do get alerts, like
Well, we are,
yeah. Comes through. And I always check the names and go, no. Not one of ours. Yeah.
Nigel.
Thank you, Chairman. In relation to the officer that resigned and the setting up of the second company, what preventative action have we taken in terms of informing all staff and reminding them of their obligations in respect to that?
Do you want to answer that?
So historically, we've done annually all staff complete their declaration, and then staff being asked to keep those up to date. We've introduced from this year a 6-monthly reminder as well, with a follow-up email to people what their obligations are to complete. To try and
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, I've just got, I think it's the final clause, number 14, page 85. It states there were no significant issues that needed immediate reporting to the audit committee. Are we satisfied? Are we content as the audit committee that there were no significant issues? Do we agree? The knowledge that we've gained over the year. Okay, I'll take the agreements there. Paul?
Yeah, sorry.
It's the question, are you asking us to say yes to what we don't know? Or are you saying what has been presented to us, do we think there's any flaws in here?
No, all I'm asking now, are you confident that there were no significant issues that needed to be reported to the audit committee that you're aware of?
I trust the internal auditors.
I mean, from my drawing from experience elsewhere, I guess It's not like a trick question.
No.
Just, to invite members to say no, there aren't, and then aha, it's really just to because obviously as full members, full councillors, you will have a much greater knowledge and understanding of the council and its operations. So, from an audit perspective, that would be something that I would be interested to see. I mean, EY may not ask it, but it's really, trying to tap into the collective knowledge of the members of the committee about the council, and anything which you think, oh, actually, either that isn't a small issue, or what about something else that may have happened? So it's to say, if there isn't, then there isn't. But I think it's useful to kind of pose the question. Say it's not designed to be a trick question.
Mm.
So.
Okay, we'll let that one ride then. I understood it anyway.
I was just sitting here looking at those examples of the kind of potential for conflict of interest. To be honest, without wishing to put myself in the spotlight, I kind of think, well, I have a number of roles.
Mm.
I'm self-employed as an ombudsman for the Financial Ombudsman Service. I'm a non-executive director with NHS Sussex, and I obviously have the independent member role here. So, if you like, I have multiple roles, if not employments. But I guess the point is that they are all declared as interests, so it's clear and open. And I'm discharging all those roles. I'm not pretending to work for one and actually working for another. I was trying to apply the same test to myself, and I was kind of hoping that, yes, I don't think I would have appear on this list of potential conflicts.
No, people have.
Right, members, we are asked to approve the annual governance statement. Can I have a show of hands, please? For approval? Yeah, unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 10. Okay. Now I'm going to be asking the performance manager. I don't know your name.
Jacqueline. Jacqueline.
Just wait for Nigel to come back. Does anybody else want water or help themselves to a custard cream?
God's own.
I'll give it a bit of juice.
Oh, okay.
You can have one, Don, as well, not just the members. So item number 10, and we'll ask the performance manager to provide the report on the risk management quarterly update, quarter 3.
So Appendix A details the corporate risk register. We continue to have one of our risks that's exempt, and we'll just address that under the exemption. It's worth just noting this is our end of quarter 3 report, and at that point there were no changes to the risk rating assigned to each of our current risks. And those risks are being plotted on a heat map under 1.2 on page 99 of the agenda. We continue to have 6 risks which are rated red, so considered the highest risk to the council. OO1, which is the benefit subsidy claim. I know John's going to talk a bit more about this one. So whilst the error rate has fallen to 0.38% at month 9, we're still forecasting an end of year error rate of 0.44, so that's remained red. OO3 is related to lower levels of income in income. That's due to mitigations of the housing benefit claims, universal credit, and general increased costs from inflation. The management team are continuing to monitor this risk, and we set out plans to mitigate loss of income and increased costs by regularly reviewing the MTFS. 004 is around our funding from the government, and that being less than we've assumed in the medium-term financial strategy. Obviously, we've had the increase in national insurance rates, which is an increased expenditure of 5 million. The funding now to only cover 154k of that, leaving a 344k gap. This will be met by using additional floor funding grants. However, as the funding is going to be included with the council's core spending, there's a further risk of this being reduced in subsequent years. 009 is related to adopting an up-to-date local plan by the end of 2025. This one's being closely monitored following cancellation of the local plan examinations in December. When the report was written, we had insufficient information of the impact that change would have on the risk rating, which is why we haven't seen that increase in risk rating at the moment. We'll know more going forward on that one. 017, is our exempt risk, and 018 is the capital refurbishment project. And that risk is remaining high due to that changing nature of the project, which is impacting that risk. We are consulting members regularly as the scope of the project changes. There's a pre-plan to pre-construction work anticipated in January 2026. And there's obviously a risk of that work overrunning and that impacting the relaunch date, and that could have a knock-on impact. So we also are monitoring the risk of staff retention following that period of closure. As that was our position at the end of Q3, we are expecting some movement when we come back to you in Q4. So as well as the local plan, we're also anticipating a change in recruitment and retention. So we haven't yet seen an impact of local government reorganisation on recruitment and retention, but we do have a concern that that might be noted as we go further into the process. So again, we're going to continue to closely monitor and amend that one as we go forward. We will also need to be considering whether we need to introduce a specific risk in relation to LGR. I think that's going to be a bit of a changing thing of what that might look like going forward for us. Any questions?
Thank you. Members, have you got any questions? Lennon S. Brown. Chair, no, this is Q3. So I'd expect, will 015, the officer, taken off the risk register next time?
I think we review everything, that everything is, because the server, for example, will still be moving across. So we'll need to make sure the whole project is closed off before we close that off as a risk completely. But at that time, we haven't moved into the building, so it remains a risk for us.
Thank you. Any other questions? Richard Landon?
Risk 18, the capital. I can't verify it, but somebody told me that the contractor had actually pulled out of, or has a history of pulling out of a contract halfway through sometime. Also, of course, you've always got the risk of contractor failure. I don't know whether we should put that in there as well.
Yeah, we definitely look to add that into that.
The project itself has its own risk register as well. So the risk, the corporate risk is sort of the large risk to the council, and then the project has its own risks, which of course contract failure and will be on there as well. But
Subsequent question, and do we have insurance to offset any major losses, potential losses?
I think it's been contract management. No, but we do ask for insurance as part of procurement exercise.
Yeah, thanks.
But there's a recognised contract.
Consequential loss if there were delay in one of the contract.
I don't know.
I think that's.
I can find out, or we're not
Given
at
the
the point of that
significance that.
contract yet, but when we get there, I can feed that.
I think it'd be interesting to see how much we feel we can offset through insurance and how much we would want to take on ourselves.
Okay, any further questions? No, okay, now we can move on to the exempt item. As chairman, I move that under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public will be excluded from the meeting for this item of business on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act by virtue of paragraph 3, information related to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information, and in all the circumstances of the case, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Do I have a seconder, please? Belinda Waters? Okay, so we've stopped recording now. Sorry?
We haven't yet. You need to ask if everybody else agrees.
Yeah, all right. Do we all approve?
Yes.
Thank you. Right, okay. So this item is for noting. Committee, do you respond as noted, please? Yep. A quiet bunch, aren't they? Okay, so we now move on to item number 11, which is the housing benefits audit. And I think I asked the Director of Resources to deliver this one, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So 23-24. So there's a bit of a delay in the audit process for this, and we're sort of a year behind, if you like, almost, because it takes a long time to process and then to audit the claim. If you recall, about this time last year, I sat here and delivered some bad news on the 22-23 housing benefit audit. We lost £191,000 worth of subsidy. We had ended that year and the pre-audit figure over the threshold, the lower threshold, I think it was, and then the audit impact caused us to lose more subsidy and go over the upper threshold. So government allows you a little bit of leeway with making errors, and we broke that sort of threshold. In 23-24, our position was reasonable during the year, so we only found 0.24% of error during the year. But unfortunately, the audit extrapolation of the errors that they have found in the audit took us over the lower, but not over the upper this time. So that's why you see the figure this year in terms of lost subsidy is 65,000. So from a sort of a stand back and what does all this mean? It means we're getting slightly better, but we're still not there. Which you'll have also just seen in the risk register as well. So we are hovering around about 0.4% in the current year, 24-25, which is underneath the lower threshold. But past experience and history tells us that actually there will be some audit extrapolations, and it's the value of that that will take us probably over the lower threshold as a minimum, and it may even breach the upper threshold. So whilst 23-24 is better, there's no guarantee that actually 24-25 will be better. And there's a combination of factors, and the paper does set this out. There's a sort of a historical underlying error rate from the previous census era, and some of those claims are still, incorrect in the system. And when you identify, obviously that is now going back a number of years, the sum is quite big. There were some issues in there during COVID when things were very, very difficult in the service and errors were made. And, you know, some of that legacy will still exist in the system. And of course, there are, you know, despite efforts of improving the quality and numerous things that we are trying to make sure that the input, as we've just sort of talked about, is good. It's never going to be perfect, and there will be an element of human error that goes in there as well. So those three factors mean that actually at the moment we are struggling to get us out of a loss of subsidy. So 23-24, good effort, but not quite there. 24-25, you know, we're still waiting for the audit to happen. It could take us over. So it's not, you know, we're not out of the woods yet. Any questions?
Okay, Belinda?
Yeah, the government is looking for AI to be used more and more. Do you see any benefits of applying an AI system to this, to inputting?
There will be benefits from it, I'm sure. Is there a existing system that runs on AI and we could just plug in and play and everything will be perfect? No, there isn't. That will take a number of years, I suspect, to develop, because it's a very, very complex area. It would be great when that does come along. It's never, even that is never going to be perfect, I'm sure, but it may reduce the error rate, in which case we should absolutely be looking at that. There's nothing off the shelf that we can go and...
Yeah, I'm just thinking if it's a government-driven system, then there shouldn't be any penalties for having errors because it will be built into the system rather than humans.
But unfortunately, we're still relying on humans to pass the right information across to us or source the right information. So make it as you know, AI as we can. There's still going to be an element of human error.
I mean, on the basis, you know,
It's just reducing that error.
yeah. It's just that AI has been very successful in mammograms and stuff like that. So it's like if it's a question of identifying, you know, a miswritten, you know, they might be able to highlight it and throw it out before it actually gets into the system. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but it's certainly something that I think will improve, and not just at this council, but so that should be great. It's just I don't think it's there yet.
No.
But as it develops, we will certainly be looking at it.
I'd also be worried about AI and human error, and the possibility of compounding the problem. AI is not infallible. Please understand that it's machine learning, and it can learn the wrong things, and as I've learned myself. So I'd be very cautious about employing AI in the future, at the moment anyway. Richard, sorry.
I would have thought even with AI, there must be some kind of data input at the front end.
Yeah.
And as we said before, rubbish in, rubbish out.
But AI might be able to identify that rubbish and understand why it's rubbish. But again, it's about how it learns and how it reacts. It's a fascinating subject. I'm married to a software developer, so I get all this rubbish.
Really? Well, I've seen the benefits from it from the NHS point of view.
Okay, so there are benefits. Any further questions on this item, Paul?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, just picking up the points about, you know, over time, you would hope that those large historical errors, you know, from previous shared service arrangements, that they would gradually kind of fall out, and that you would hope that over time, assuming, you know, if Milton Keynes are as good as, you know, they seem to be, that you would expect the trend error to come down as those errors are found and basically eliminated. And I guess that, you know, it's impossible to know at what point does that, you know, give the council confidence that the error rate will be consistently below not just the upper threshold, but the lower one as well. And I guess linked to that, you know, at some point, you would hope that the amount of work, and I'm just looking at the numbers of workbooks that are being carried out here, that the need for additional testing and additional workbooks would, you know, similarly reduce, and therefore the council hopefully we'll start to see the benefit in terms of lower fees for the work, because a big chunk of it is the additional workbooks, sort of like 54,000, a base fee of only 17,000, but like 3 times the base fee is on those additional workbooks. So hopefully the two will trend down, reaping a benefit to the council in terms of less subsidy clawback and lower fees.
Yes, and in fact we dropped 4 workbooks, but the fee stayed the same. But then that's inflation and higher costs. So.
I'd assume that we'd be breaking our liaison with Milton Keynes at some future stage because of government reorganisation.
Well, there's no assumption there at the moment because we don't know quite how it might look in the future, and it may well be that Milton Keynes are part of our future, along with a wider West Sussex.
Unitary, we may still have a contract with them.
So,
yes.
but there will be a number of discussions because Milton Keynes, for example, may have their own reorganisation that actually they don't want to remain in partnership with us. I think they probably do because we seem to be getting on quite well. So there are a number of conversations that have to happen over the next 12 months probably to work out what that future may look like in some sort of time format, which may or may not coincide with the 1st of April 2028.
We're at that stage of being consciously unconscious.
Thank you, Richard. Okay, yeah, I'll remember that one. Okay, no further questions then. Thank you. Members are asked to note the expected loss of subsidy that has been identified in the audit of the 23-24 housing benefit claim, and B, the measures being taken to improve the process and reduce errors in the future. Noted. Okay. So we now move on to, I think, the last item on the agenda, which is the Treasury Management and Prudential Indicators Q3 report. And it is Head of Finance going to present this one. So thank you.
A nice simple introduction. So this is the Q3 Treasury Management Prudential Indicator report. We now have to report to the Audit Committee quarterly. So the half year comes and the final outcome comes to committee. These ones don't quite fit in with the committee date, so they're emailed to you. The report is in the agenda pack, but it was also emailed on the 11th of February 2025 from Julian Shopka. But that's it, to note the report.
Okay, so any
questions?
Any questions? Okay, so we're asked to note. Oh, Paul King.
You need a better indicator.
Yeah.
Red flag.
Yeah, paragraph 3.3 talks about the debt figure in the table above, a notional debt associated with IFRS 16 and the move to Halbury House. Is there likely to be at some point a reduction as the lease at Parkside is finally terminated, ended?
I would think so.
It's not.
Actually, I can come back to you on that. And the reason why I think so is because I don't know whether we do it on the break lease day, in which case it wouldn't have carried on, or whether we do it on the full lease or overthinking it as I sit here. So I will have to come back to you on that one.
And so, I mean, I presume it may well be something for a future quarterly report if the figures go down, and that might be the explanation. I was thinking if your lease was at the end of May, Dan, did you say that?
That's May.
So maybe the next quarterly report might have an update outside of something you send around direct.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Or Julian will be there to answer the question.
Thank you.
Okay, we're asked to note this report. We will agree to note.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now the last item on the agenda is urgent business. I don't actually have any urgent business except someone's going to eat all those custard creams. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.